Right then guys, it's a good chance for me to just get a quick chat with Ken about his style of fishing. It's great. I've been listening to it all day, different bits of tips here and tips there, and I think there's some interesting things. So I said, Ken, let me get you on camera, just talking your fishing, just how you do the things. And so luckily he said, yeah, right, and we'll give it a go. So I'm going to hand you over to Ken now, just about your style, mate. You know, it's just lightweight and go for it, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I think when I started fishing years and years ago, you know, you turn up to the carp lake or the gravel pit and they'd sort of say, oh, over there's Secret Squirrel John, and he was Secret Squirrel. He wouldn't tell you what bait he was using, what rigs he was using. Not that there was anything complicated in those days. It was very sort of different. And then you had sort of like, one guy had a great style, he could stalk them out. Another guy would have a style where he could cast a long way. And everyone on the lakes and on the waters, they all had a certain style about them.
Yeah.
And I suppose that when you look around now, there's a lot of what I would call carp cliches. So a lot of people spot, a lot of people spawn, a lot of people angle at long range, and it's almost sort of cliched when you turn up at a lake and you see the carp angler. He's got 3 rods on a pod. It's like the Guns of Navarone. And
spot out straight away.
Yeah, and out with a spot, out with a marker rod, and the latest must have accessory, these marker sticks and doing wraps. You know, I have to say my favourite wrap's the one that's got some doner meat in it, to be honest.
Yeah. After on the way home, like the chilli sauce.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, extra chilli. Yeah, absolutely. And what I find is, I think my fishing sort of, in essence, it's lost in time. It's sort of almost stood still, and I think Dave Chilton sort of summed it up the best when he said that I'm an old school angler encompassing certain modern technologies. So I mean, as you see, is what you get. You know, I predominantly fish mainly with 2 rods. Because I like to sort of fish close in, intimate sort of minimalistic fishing, and I would say I sort of like slack line, I'm sort of like semi-slack, but I do like to fish close in. I like to sort of be able to, you know, I see people, they get their smartphone out and they go, oh yes, I was in this swim and I was fishing Wad A at 40 wraps, 20 wraps and 10 wraps, and they put it all written down, and they, you know, and I can understand what they're doing to a degree. You know, I mean, if my fishing was done like on a smartphone, it would be, oh yeah, I was in this swim, I don't know, 2 weeks ago, and yeah, it was 20 footsteps to the right where I dropped the rod. You know, it would be measured in footsteps, and I just like the fact that
lake beds change though, don't they?
Yeah, and I often wonder whether or not the reed moves and that, and whether this sort of style of fishing has got sort of like what I would call flaws in. And I think that overall, when I sort of look at my own fishing, the word, you know, a lot of people, that their favourite word is sort of like complicated. You know, complicated with bait formulas. You know, we have to have a bait that can be used all season. Whereas when I started fishing, you had a protein for the winter, and then the emergence of the fish meal for the summer, and now we've got winterised fish meals that you can use all year round. We've got nut baits, we've got all sorts of complicated baits with complicated additives in there, and then you look at people's rigs, and you know, some of these rigs, they're beyond confusing. You know,
confuse yourself as well as the fish.
Confusion components. It's all, you know. And I sort of look at my fishing, and the main word that I always apply to my fishing is the word consistent. I like everything to be consistent. I like my rigs to be a consistent length. I use the same pattern of hook. 99% of my fishing is pop-up based, but with the pop-up really low low to the ground, because I just don't think that bigger fish detect that it's popped up. And the only reason that I want to fish a popped up bait is because I don't want the hook to be masked by a leaf or pinged onto a twig or pinged onto a bit of reed. So I always predominantly fish a pop up, very simple rig. I still put great faith in the Kamazan B175, which is a trout hook. And when you meet sort of like people at the shows and they say, oh, you know, why do you use a trout hook? You then explain to them that the reason is that when you started carp fishing, there wasn't carp hooks.
No.
You know, now when you look, there's a carp hook for every day of the month.
Yeah, every style,
You know.
everyone. Yeah.
You know, and it's never ending. And I just think that with the way I fish, the consistent element is always what sort of drives my fishing forward. You know,
Because it's simple. Your end tackle, that one we see it earlier. It's fairly simple, isn't it? You don't complicate yourself, but your system you've got, you can change. If you needed to go choddy, you needed to go helicopter, you can change your end tackle like that, can't you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think so. You know, I think the reason is because I sort of spend a lot of time with it. I mean, I've still got my old Stuart box that you know I could probably eBay it now.
Yeah.
It's a collector's item. But
You think someone will give you one, won't you?
yeah, but the reality of it is that when I started fishing, I could never fill it up because there wasn't that many components to fill up a tackle box with. You know, I mean, we didn't even have ring swivels. We had diamond swivels, and then we went to, you know, like round swivels. And again, when I sort of look in my ancient old box, if I want to fish a chod, I use a size 11 ring swivel. There we are. I always use an inline lead, even when I'm fishing a helicopter. So I use a size 8 to secure that. If I want to fish a running inline, then I go back to the size 11. And then, because most of the time I'm fishing with sort of supple braids, I don't use a hook ring swivel at all. I use a large-eyed swivel because I don't need a ring swivel because I've got the braid. And then the bottom of the helicopter is oh, there we go, is secured by a running lead buffer bead, and then the top of the helicopter is secured by a chod bead. So my components are always there, and it's all about the consistency. So this is my take it anywhere rig, and all it is a Kamazan 175 B175 hook, a bit of supple braid, in this case it's super silk, but Merlin, Supernova, Silkworm, anything will do, and a micro ring swivel. And years ago, before the micro ring swivel came out, I would use again the braid, but I would create a hair, ripping knot the hair to the shank, and then knot the snot for security down there and fish it as a hair. But with the hook ring, with the micro ring swivel, I've replaced the hair. So technology has given us, you know, an advancement in the industry, in terminal tackle. So I use it because there's an advantage to using it.
And like you say, because you've got more spin and more 360 on it.
Yeah, and the thing, how it works is I've tied the ripping knot as an example on, you know, there, and I've got my blowback rig. So if I want to fish a bottom bait, for example, so here we have a little wafter. What I do, when I can get my pesky needle, is I just, you know, it's no rocket science, it's just a thought process, I think. So if I'm fishing a bottom bait, or a snowman, or like a double bottom bait, what I do is I just simply pull that down the braid, and I mount it just on the eye of that swivel, so that the barrel is at the base. So that gives me my separation.
Yeah.
So if I'm fishing a wafter or a snowman, or like I would call a greedy pig rig, 2 or 3 double baits, I've got the consistent separation from the hook all the time, and
Yeah.
it works. Now, if I'm fishing a pop-up, and this is how sad my fishing world is.
But you make sure everything's exactly the same every time, don't you?
Absolutely.
You know.
And I've spent countless time doing it. It then changes. I always use a cork ball pop-up. The reason for that is, again, it's this consistent approach. With airball pop-ups, you can put your heavy metal on and balance it up, cast it out, and it's perfect. You then bring it back in. You then take another airball pop-up out of the same tub, and I'm sure anglers all around the place will agree. It's either too heavy then, that putty, or there's not enough putty, because there's no consistency because of the way air balls are manufactured. Whereas a cork ball, it's a consistent size, a consistent amount of paste around it, and that. So when it comes to an air ball, it's a different approach. What I do is I then use a drill, because I don't want to split the boilie at all.
Yeah.
And then by pushing that drill in, I've made a bigger hole, and then we're going through the small hole, if you like, and same process again. But the difference now is, because I'm fishing a pop-up, I don't want so much separation. I want that bait nearer to the hook. So instead of just pulling it down over the eye, where I've made that bigger hole with the bait drill, and because it's paste going into a hard cork ball, now when I pull in, I now pull in to the barrel. So now I've got the perfect separation for a pop-up.
Ideal, isn't it? And so your one rig, you just change all the time to deal with all the different situations.
Yeah, and the only time I ever change this rig is if I'm then going to go onto a chod.
Yeah.
And the reason I could go onto a chod could be many reasons. It could be because I'm arriving at a venue late at night in the winter and it's pitch black and I want to present a bait all the time. It could be if I'm fishing a certain area on the canal now, the reed has absolutely blossomed and really come up, and I want to present that bait within the reed. So then I change rig. But I mean, to be quite honest, for 99% of my fishing, this is the rig of choice, and quite simply I just mould a bit of heavy metal onto there. I keep it very low, so basically the pop-up is literally just popped up off the bottom by the length of the hook. And the reason I fish like that is because I believe the bigger fish don't realise that it's a pop-up. They because it's so close, they probably think it's on the bottom. And the only reason I'm fishing a pop-up presentation is to eliminate any chance of reed, trigs, as I said, or debris impounding the hook point, because I think, if that happens, you're not going to hook the carp. So there's lots of thought gone behind a real simple rig to make it so simple where you can use anywhere. It's amazing. It takes you minutes to do that. You don't need much tackle. You've got your old-fashioned tackle bin and one rig. Just all the thought gone behind it. It's brilliant. I love sitting here chatting with Ken. He just keeps talking about where he does this way, where he does that way, but he doesn't use any amount of kit. It's I'll just adapt it like that, because he's thought about his rig, adaptation of the rig, the way he wants to fish, how quick he can change all his end gear. It's been great. I don't suppose we're going to go into his end gear, his setup and that lot, because it's brilliant. I might copy it one day and give it a go though. But it's just thinking and keeping it so simple, but with it, the mechanics behind it are just spot on, aren't they? I think that's the key. Consistency is the absolute key. And there's too much complication, and when you say like my old-fashioned tackle box, years ago I couldn't fill it up because there wasn't the amount of components that there is absolutely on the marketplace now.
Yeah.
Now I can't fill it up because there's no need for it in my fishing for all those components. I'm not saying that they don't work, You know, loads of people have really good results on the most complicated of rigs, but for me, I really just don't see things moving on. It's like, you know, with the rods, for example, you know, these are Century rods, and all right, they've got the autoclave, they've got the anti-twist, they've got, you know, quality rings, and you know, but 20 years ago I was using Century rods, so again my fishing hasn't changed. I'm still, you know, if you bumped into me on a lake 20 years ago, oh hello, you Ken, yeah, what are you using? Oh, Century rods. And then you came up to me now and said, oh, what are you using? Century. But I'm not using the Century rods that I had.
Yeah, you just gone
20
with technology
years. And again, it's a progress of technology, you know, modern materials, modern building methods. And again, it's just that consistency. And it's like with the reels. Here I'm fishing a small water. I'm fishing the canal at the moment. I'm using Darwin Goldspools SS26s. It'll probably come then as no surprise that my big pit reels are SS3000s. You know, so it's a consistency with that, and it's like it's all about consistency and thought process. My carp fishing. It's like the buzzers, for example, Delkims. Why do I use the Delkim? Purely because 99% of my time I'm fishing like I am now, my reels are locked up. If I was using a roller reel buzzer, I have problems with the word W, there's only one word I can pronounce with the word W, and that's because I've met so many in my life, so we'll leave that. But if you can imagine you're fishing locked up and you're using a conventional roller buzzer, when that line tightens and that rod tip pulls, that bobbin will go up and you'll get maybe one or two beep, beep, beep. That's what you're going to get. You're going to get beep, or you're going to get beep, beep, depending on where the magnet is. So if you're half asleep and you're not really with it, that's the only indication you get. Whereas with the Delkim, when that tightens up, you get, and then when that fish is like all over the place, you're getting, and again, you know, I'm using, which in my opinion is the best bite indication system for the style of fishing I'm doing, and everything comes down to style. And it's like people, they look at you and they say, oh, your wad butts are underneath your bed chair, you know, what's all that about?
Down there, look.
But the reality of it is when that fish pulls, that wad goes up and it's now trapped. You know, there's no way that wad's going to tip in, you know, it's trapped. And the reason that I always fish like this is because I'm fishing locked up, and I've got sort of like a little bit of line. It's not totally slack, it's sort of going through the water and coming to the end. And when that fish picks up and then moves, the power of the rod tip compressing over is then setting that hook even deeper into the mouth. So even when it comes to the hooking arrangement, there's an element of thought gone into it. And you just see so many people now, Shane, they just sort of, they turn up, out with the rod pod, 3 rods, bish, 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 bait runner on, absolutely, so you get the and I understand, you know, the screaming, take the adrenaline and everything, I totally understand it, but I just wonder how efficient that style of fishing is.
Well, right, I'm going now because I see Ken's got the kettle on. That's a little insight into Ken's fishing. If we could sit and talk for hours and hours and hours, it's interesting. Thanks a lot, mate.
It's a real pleasure.
Cheers.